And so you come to rest here on the floor. And you can feel that floor beneath you, or the bed, if that's what you're on. Feel it solid. Feel it supporting. Perhaps you might notice that all these words have meanings. Come down to lay on the floor. You had an expectation of how the floor would feel when you came down to lay. And maybe also notice how the label or the word floor that we use might conjure up an idea or a memory of what your floor is like. But right now, actually laying on your floor or carpet, completely different experience, involving all your senses. So right now, perhaps just taking in any sounds around you. And here too, the word sounds, knowing what that means, having an expectation for what sounds might be here. And when you actually tune in and listen, again, perhaps noticing more detail. And so we might notice that we have these words for everything. Everything that we might encounter. A barking dog. We might have a picture or an idea. Maybe the phrase barking dog brings up a picture of a particular dog barking. But then if we were to go for a walk and encounter one, how different that might be, that real dog. And what sort of bark it had, and when it started and when it stopped. So these words we have for things, so useful. So useful that we can talk about them, we can write about them, we can understand each other. But yet too also knowing that these are just ideas, they're shorthand. And that the thought of a bark of a dog is very different than the real bark of a dog. And these words that we also use them for ourselves, of course. We use these shorthand labels all the time. Each of us here, we might use so many words to describe ourselves. Maybe we're a son or a daughter, or a mother or a father, brother or sister. And just as each of these words, we have an idea of what they mean, when we think of our actual relationship to somebody, we might see it goes so much deeper perhaps, or there is so much more to the real relationship rather than the word. The expectations in the word. So right now, let's just pick one of these labels. And it might be father or mother, or son or daughter, or husband or wife, boyfriend or girlfriend. Just let one of these come to mind. One of these that's appropriate. And when you just hold that word in your mind, you might notice, perhaps if you say it inside your head, that there'll be pictures, there'll be a set of expectations, ideas that go with that word. Maybe if it's mother or father, there might be a certain set of ideas that come with that word. These expectations, these ideas that go along with the words have come to us through experience and through living in a society. But now what happens if we just drop that word? We drop the label. And instead, focusing on that relationship as it really is. Not as an idea, but it's a relationship made of interactions, of feelings, of shared experience. Now, what is that like? Just feel into this relationship. You set aside the word. We set aside the shoulds and shouldn'ts. And we see it as it is. So much richer, perhaps, so much more nuance, more history. So many sides, perhaps, to the relationship than one word can hold. The words that we use for things also hold these expectations. And sometimes they're helpful. They're reminders of responsibility or a duty. But sometimes some of those expectations we didn't choose. And sometimes they can perhaps cause us to not behave as we truly would do. See this relationship as it is. With all its sides. And so we might take this further. We could look at perhaps any word that we use to describe our role in society. And often this is our job or our career. See what word we use for this and how we feel about that word. We might say we're retired or not working. Or maybe it's a teacher, scientist, whatever the word is. Notice how we feel about that word. And then let's just let it go. Because like all other words, it's packaged with expectations and ideas. But if we let it fall away, and now Actually see your role. See your role not as an idea or as a name, but as the things that you do, as the interactions you have with others. Just for the moment, freeing ourselves of the expectations of the word itself, and see how things really are. Often with our view on the world, we might define as politics, which is just another word. We can find that we're asked to fit into one category or another for ease. Are you left? Are you right? Are you green? But each of these too also has expectations built into them. Well, none of us are perfectly Labour or Conservative or Liberal or Green or any other, or even none of the above. So just let go for now. Just this exercise. Any label you might carry about your political ideals. And just simply see how you feel about things. It might even be, when you look, that some ideas align with each other and some conflict, but it doesn't matter. You see what's important to you. Free from needing to fit into other people's idea. Simply seeing what feels right for you. No label. No badge. There's no left and right. There is just how you feel. The things that are important to you. We're using these words inside our minds too all the time. We're sometimes consciously or unconsciously applying these labels to ourselves and our lives. We might like to think that we are clever, or we might label ourselves as not very clever, not academic. Maybe we're creative, or maybe we like to label it as not very. Just pick one of these words that you might apply to yourself. And then just notice all that's tied up in the word and the expectations and implications that we all assume. And now let that word just fall away for a moment and see these aspects of yourself as they really are. perhaps freed from the idea that creativity means particular things, being able to paint or draw, but freed from that, so that we can begin to see how in so many walks of life we may be able to take two ideas and bring them together to create something new. But in many walks of life we find ourselves having insights and ideas, a desire to try something afresh. Think of ourselves clever or not clever when we drop the label and any expectation that it's tied to just some academic qualification. We can begin to see the natural wonder of having this mind, this brain that has learned so many skills to walk and to use language. Noticing that the word clever applies to so many aspects of life. And we can continue this too. At other times we might sit and reflect that are the words we might use too young or too old for something? It's just a label. Successful or not successful. When we drop these words, we just see behind them. We get to see how things really are. We get to experience the real barking of a dog rather than just the memory or the blurry idea of the barking of a dog. We begin to see ourselves in all our nuances and details, in all our internal richness. We begin to see things clearly. And these words that we use have their uses. They help us to communicate, to spread ideas. It's just that we need to remember that the words aren't the experiences. The words that we use for ourselves aren't us. And the words we use for others, they aren't those other people.